Welcome everybody, especially our new members. I know there are many of you that are here for the first time, specifically for this webinar, which is amazing. And also I think it's exciting for the speakers as well, and Dave. Um, so I wanted to give you a brief introduction to Kuchelink and Unfunded List and what we are doing today. So this webinar, along with the one that we did a few days ago on finding funders that fits, and one that is scheduled for next week that is on budget presentation, are intended to, of course, and always share knowledge with you to improve the organization's funding situation. But also, this is a part of a specific initiative that we are conducting right now in collaboration with Unfunded List. So Unfunded List is a nonprofit organization with the mission to educate on philanthropy. And every 6 months, they receive submissions from people around the world, organizations all around the world, and which are then reviewed by expert evaluators. Since 2015, Unfunded List has reviewed over 1,000 funding proposals worldwide, and last September, we did the first round with them. So we partner and we offer to our members, Kuchelink members, the opportunity to get their funding proposals reviewed by Unfunded List experts, which is an amazing thing that is always excites us and had excellent results. So last September, we received 50 proposals to be reviewed from our members. And in October, at least 4 reviews were completed for each proposal submitted. So over 3,000 pages of feedback were generated by these professional reviewers. So as an organization, after you send the proposal, you get it reviewed by the experts. And once that phase is complete, you will receive a full document with all the reviews that each of the reviewers did. Then in November, each organization received a personalized debriefing of the feedback on their proposal. And I'm saying what happened because this round is going to be very similar. It's just that it's happening now. So the aim of this initiative is to ensure that when presenting proposals to a donor or a funder, the proposals are as comprehensive as possible and written with deeper understanding of what a funder expects. And I will clarify, this is very important just because this sometimes is a point of confusion, that this service that we are offering on this occasion is to assist organizations in the presentation of solid funding proposals. So they have a higher likelihood of success, but neither Unfunded List or Kuchelink operate as donors. So we are not offering funding. I know that many of you, probably most of you know this already, but we've had some confusion in the past with that. And finally, and quickly, before we start with this specific webinar, I wanted to tell you that, as a reminder, that the next submission period starts in March 15th and ends in March 29th. And so what we recommend you is to assist to this webinar, ask us the questions, have your proposal finalized. So then in this window, you can present the proposal to us. And finally, the steps to submit your application is, the first one is to submit your application for review. You have to have a complete organizational profile on Kuchelink. So you have to be a Kuchelink member, but you also have to have your organizational profile quite complete, so we know what your organization is about. We recommend you to attend the 3 webinars that are being held by us and Unfunded List. And in order to send us your proposal for review, you must have attended at least one of them. Applications must be written in English and must be targeted to a specific funder. So we know that many of our members are not fluent in English, and sometimes that's a problem. What we want to say about this is that many times funders ask for the proposals to be in English anyway. So it's a good practice to learn how to translate it and probably have like a contact person, a friend, or someone that can translate it with you. Maybe you use an automatic tool like ChatGPT, for example, and then someone that knows that is more English fluent can help you reviewing that everything is okay. And we can talk more about this in the next webinars. And then what happens is that a team of professional evaluators will review that proposal, and in 2 months you are going to receive all the feedback. And finally, we offer you a one-on-one with one of the reviewers, so you can ask all the questions that you might have regarding the feedback that you received or your proposal. And I don't want to take much more time, so I'm going to stop here. If anyone has any questions, just write to us. I'm going to leave our email address on the chat. And thank you so much. Abby, the floor is yours. Abby, I think you're muted. Okay.
Oh, hello, everyone. Well, thank you, Clara.
I thought it was the channel. That's why it took me a while to tell you.
Exciting doing the interpretation. Well, welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Abby Robinson, and I have the honor of hosting this dynamic webinar today. And we have some exciting global professionals here to share their exciting craft of proposal writing. So before we get started, I just want to do a few logistics. And one, everyone should be seeing my screen, and it's the title of our presentation today, Answering Grant Proposal Questions, Efficient Proposal Writing. So we want to make this a dynamic discussion. I'll go over the agenda in just 1 minute. But first, some quick logistics is, as Clara mentioned at the beginning, there is simultaneous translation. You can go under the more settings and pick French, Spanish, or you can remain on our English channel. We are recording this conversation. In addition, we do invite questions. Will be a question and answer at the end. You can also add your questions to the chat. I just recommend that you put a question symbol, write your question, and again, you can write it in English, Spanish, or French. And when that time comes, I'll actually invite those who have asked questions to read their question aloud, and those who might think of a question in the moment can share theirs as well. So save those questions, either write them down on your own paper or write them on the chat, and we'll have time at the end. And the idea is we're going to hear from professionals from around the world that have been involved in grant writing and also grant reviewing to share a little bit about what they have learned about proposal writing. So on that note, let's look at our agenda for today. So this is what we have planned. And everyone should be seeing the second slide, which says agenda. And we're going to have this welcome, speaker introductions. I'll be presenting each of our speakers, and they'll be giving a little insight into who they are and some of the key learnings that they've had in proposal writing. And then we'll engage in discussion. We have 5 key topics we're going to cover, and then we'll open it to some others. And then we'll have question and answer, where we want to hear your questions and engage you in the discussion. And then we'll go forth with some inspiration. So all of our speakers will be leaving you with some thoughts and advice to inspire your own proposal writing. So on that note, let's go to our speakers. So here's who we have today. We have, again, Abby Robinson. I'm originally from the US. I'm now based out of Canada. We have Christina Andoni, who's based in Canada, originally from Moldova. Blessings Kasolakani from Malawi. Karuna Dayal from India. And Narayan Adhikari from Nepal. So I'll start with my brief introduction. So again, my name is Abby, and I bring about 20 plus years of grant writing and fundraising experience. A lot of that was with an organization called Atlas Corps and really focused on US government proposals as well as private funders. And really the key learning that I pulled out of my 20 years of growing in my grant writing skills is the ability to make complex concepts simple and to make them in a way that a funder, any funder, can understand in a short amount of time. So I can delve into that a little more later, but just remembering that thought, taking the complexity of what each of us do every day and making it simple for an outsider to understand. Excellent. So now I'm going to invite Christina, if you want to come forward and share a little about your background.
Thank you, Abby. I'm very happy to be here. So I'm located in Canada. I'm originally from Moldova. I'm currently working as a senior advisor in knowledge mobilization for a national nonprofit here in Canada. And some of my past experience include international development, project management. I have worked in the public administration, so I really have touched a lot of sectors. And in terms of grant writing, I have experience reviewing proposals for the public administration, local government more particularly, and also for a national foundation. So I have seen a lot of proposals and I've reviewed them. I also serve as a reviewer for unfunded lists. So I've seen proposals through them as well, and it's a great resource, which I highly recommend. And I have also helped nonprofits apply for grants. So I've also written grants. So I have the perspective of both worlds. And first of all, I want to say that I highly empathize with all the organizations that have to do a lot. I think we expect a lot from nonprofits, and they have a very difficult job of doing the amazing work, first of all, and serving and filling gaps where other institutions or organizations can. But also we expect them to create beautiful proposals and do a lot of other kind of work that is really hard to do. I have seen from my experience, and of course, the disclaimer that I want to give is that there are different kind of funders and there are different kind of organizations, and everything that I kind of say is generalized, of course, for the purpose of this webinar, but it's really a case-by-case situation. And more often than not, I have seen organizations who do amazing work, important work, but it does not translate necessarily into receiving the funds that they need. So great ideas and great work does not necessarily equal funding. And unfortunately, that's how it works. And there are many reasons at stake, and there are things that the organization can control for and cannot, because that's how it works in different kind of spheres of life. That happens when we look for a job, that happens when in different kind of situations, and it happens in the nonprofit world as well. So I think the idea for this webinar is to look into ways of really helping organizations control for the things that they can control and ensure that they develop proposals that are good. And from my own experience, I've seen three main reasons why organizations do not receive funding. Besides, of course, the increasing competition and the limited amount of funds that are available, is the first one is the organization is not really understanding the funders' requirements and the funders' reality in general. That requires, of course, a lot of homework, and it also requires taking a strategic long-term perspective. I highly recommend the nonprofits that I work with of really incorporating their fundraising goals into their strategic plans. and approaching it really from, a planning perspective. And I know that a plan is only a plan, but it's very important to have, and it's very important to create a fundraising plan and really put the effort into segment the type of available funders and do a short list at the end, what kind of funders align with each organization's objectives, because there are many funders out there, and there has to be an alignment between what the funders does, what the funders believe in, the type of project that the funders funds, and also with the organization's objectives. So depending what your short-term objectives are, medium, long-term, there can be different funders that could be sought out, and that requires a strategic planning approach. And that kind of leads me to a second reason that I have seen organizations why they don't receive funding, is that many organizations do not build relationships. From a funder perspective, and most funders want to really find opportunities of the best use of their money. So, and it's very hard out there to give money to an organization that you just don't know anything about. It probably pertains more to organizations that are new, but there is much more than an organization can do. It can build relationships with funders, and that kind of is integrated into the strategic planning approach, because you would have a shortlisted funders, and then you'll see based on which funders you want to approach or engage with, you will really plan your engagement with them, which is very important. So building relationships with funders, but also building relationships with other partners. I think sometimes organizations just operate a lot of times in silos, and there are different kind of partners that could be sought out, partners that we don't think about, universities, local officials, et cetera. There can be different kind of partners that you never know how things work and how opportunities are created that way. But it's from even a trust building perspective with future funders, hearing about the work of some organization, or it's very important, and it probably it's easier to do and pertains to organizations that operate nationally. So that is definitely easier to do than internationally, but not impossible. So just kind of have a perspective of looking for partners that are not the usual suspects. And the third reason why I saw many organizations not receiving funding is that they simply are not able to tell a compelling story. They either don't have the resources, many times that probably is more in the realm of small organizations that really have limited resources. And again, I know it's a lot to expect from organizations, but it's about putting the time in. It's an art and a skill, but it's more a skill to tell the story in a narrative way, but also in using metrics. And I know some of my colleagues will speak about it further. There are many resources out there. It comes with experience. It's taking each funding opportunity as a lesson, because if an organization does not receive funding, it doesn't mean that it will never receive funding given from a same funder. It just means that the organization does not receive the funding right now. So it's a learning opportunity, and it's important to have a longer term vision for the organization itself, really understanding their own objectives, what the organization stands for, and see which partners align with that objectives, and build relationships. Sometimes there is a saying that says that ask for money, you will not receive it, but ask for advice and you might receive money. So yeah, ask for advice and talk to as many people as you can and build networks and relationships. And also, my last point is that it's really is a true partnership. I know that funders and grantee relationships are asymmetrical from the start because there is money involved and there is a certain kind of power dynamic that is intrinsic to it. However, funders, they need they are partners to exist, and vice versa. It is a symbiotic relationship, and it's important for organizations to be more empowered, know what they stand for, advocate for their work, not assume that things are just understood, and it's important to seek a third perspective on your own work as well, to and approach it as a true partnership. So I think
excellent.
This is for me.
Excellent. Thank you, Christina. And that's a unique focus beyond just what's on the paper, creating relationships, which we can talk about. So thank you for that intro. And now I'm going to invite Blessings to come forward and share a little about yourself and about your grant writing experience and inspiration.
Thank you, Abby. Can you hear me?
Yes, you sound great.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed the webinar. Thank you so much. So my name is Blessings Kaswarekani. I'm based in Malawi, and my enterprise is Agri Community Center, SSC Malawi. We aim to socioeconomically empower smallholder farmers, cooperatives, associations, non-government organizations, and also private sector in mobilizing resources, that is grants for funding, to scale up their institutions, and then also their project that they intend to be doing. So I will share my experience. Basically, I have over 6 years experience in writing winning grant proposals from different international organizations, including USAID, UNDP, and also Feed the Future, though they are into similar circle, into a donor circle. But then I usually aim to really share my experience for the past years that I've been writing proposals, because I've been engaged with different institutions. As I've already said, that I also work with private sector. I also run as a business consultancy. So I have an opportunity that I've interacted with both public sector and government organizations and also private sector. So I know both experiences in terms of how to approach and then craft and develop a winning concept and also a project proposal. So from my experience, I've been a senior programs manager as well for Cotton Farmers Association of Malawi, where I'm responsible for fundraising and also developing proposals for funding. So from my experience that I've been doing, I've learned or come to realize that the 3 tips that I will share here will also be of help, as it has already improved my journey in terms of grant writing. So first one is knowing the type of proposal that you are responding to. I understand there are different types of grants proposals, RFQs. So you need to know what kind of a grant proposal are you responding, because different proposals usually require different approaches. For example, formal or solicited proposals, they usually give you, templates, terms of reference, the areas that they are funding, areas of intervention that you need to focus, their project goals that you need to meet. So there is an solicited proposal or an official proposal where you just respond according to the given title. This one is more like open, so you are able to develop your full proposal, you develop your own template. So you are not confined to the rules or the goals or the projects concepts that are shared, but then you develop your own. So it's really very important to know the type of proposal you are responding to, so that you follow the terms of reference if given, you follow the rules, you follow all the guidelines, all the submission instructions, because usually solicited proposals or official proposals where you receive a notification that you need to submit a request. There are written requests for proposals. Those kinds are in that category of requests for proposals, official proposals. So you need to follow all the rules, all the set guidelines that have been given, and then you follow all the procedures, the template, without adding or subtracting. You are confined to follow that. So the second point that I want to share as well, that it really has helped me with also the feedback that I usually got from the donor or the funder previously, is on impacts. Okay. The area of impacts when you are writing a proposal is very important. You need to show your impacts by category. You need to indicate social, economical, and also environmental impacts that your initiative or interventions will bring. And more importantly, you need also to include including the statistics or the numbers. If you are talking of impacts, how many beneficiaries, how many direct beneficiaries will the interventions or the project benefit? How many indirect beneficiaries will the initiative or the project benefit? So with all that, you need to include numbers, statistics. If reports are available, you need also to cite. It's very important so that everything you are writing is really giving sense with a backup of reference. So the third point is on feasibility and sustainability of the project that you are writing a grant for. So usually donors, from my experience, I will say that they need, evidence that the intervention that you are sharing is really feasible. You're not just saying or just wishing to do it, but then you have a backup. You have a reference, maybe from study reports, or maybe from statistic reports from maybe different, different institutions, either UNDP or National Statistical Office in your respective countries. They've produced the report, so you are using that one. That I think this kind of project is really feasible. It will be doable, and more importantly, it goes together with sustainability. No donor will be interested to fund a project that will end soon after the grant period. So it's really very important to include strategies that you've set in place that will continually be there sustaining the organization beyond the grant period. Usually most donors, they wish to support organization that will continually operate beyond the grant period, beyond the period that the donors will be supporting you. So you need also to include extra revenue streams that you've been operating, or strategies that you've been put in place so that you are attracting another sources of funding or streams of income into your organization, so that the donor should see that after the grant period or after the grant finish, you'll be able still to continually save your beneficiaries, or your institution will still be growing. So those are really very important, and usually they combine and then come together to form like an inclusive or a coordinated project proposal. So from my experience, I could say that I think those three key areas are very important, are very instrumental when you are planning to write, or when you are writing a project proposal that will seek funding from donors and funders. So in conclusion, I would say it's very important in all the aspects that I've said, the three aspects that I've said, to include numbers, be specific, be precise as well. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you, Blessings. And just emphasizing a couple of things you said is with the numbers, and even when a project is new, you can find those other places. And also that idea of sustainability and really focusing on strategies, even if you don't have other funders, as strategies. So thank you for those interesting insights. Excellent. So let's welcome our third speaker, Karuna. Would you like to come forward on the virtual stage and introduce yourself and share your insights?
Sure, Abby. Thank you so much. I hope I'm audible and clear to the audience out there.
You
Thank you
sound
so
great.
much for thank you so much for bringing us all together, and very specifically, I work with the technology sector, specifically with an academic institution. My full name is Karuna Dayal. For the audience out there, I carry 17 plus years of experience, and I belong to Mumbai right now, currently in India, working with the Indian Institute of Technology, which is a premier institution in India. And it also gives academic background or academic knowledge to upcoming undergraduates or postgraduates or PhD scholars of our country. Apart from the work experience, I derive pleasure working on the Indian development sector and the international development sector as well. I carry this experience from my own, knowledge base of working in different organizations across the world. There's also the non-profit sector, which has taught me to also work on the ground and bring on that knowledge of storytelling and how to write proposals or grants, for international organizations. Now, this could be on the basis of where you are placed, but I'll keep it more generic so that you understand more clearly and precisely. I derive, experience on the ground as one of the major skills, in writing proposals. While we also talk about metrics and numbers in putting down a good and clear and specific proposal, we also look at the cultural understanding of the groundwork that we've done. I've worked on domains such as healthcare, education, technology. And I've also worked on the other side of the non-profit sector, that is on the bandwidth of the government. I have done proposal writing and grant writing for foundations and institutions as well. Also UN agencies. So these are a very broad network and bandwidth of stakeholders from where I have raised funds in my previous experience and also in current experience. Coming from an understanding of writing grants, I feel that 3 to 4 clear points should be there in mind while writing grants. One, very specifically, what I have noticed through my grant writing experience in nonprofits and organizations across nonprofits is that people work till the last date of submitting the proposals or grants, which is really not permissible. I think there has to be a clear responsibility and ownership in the team or for the individual who's writing grants. That is a necessity, I feel. That's a must have. Second is, of course, the metrics, plus also the deep knowledge of what you are proposing to be presented on the grant, concept note or a proposal draft. You need to have a clear understanding of what you are going to write about, but also putting it in clear and precise manner, in terms of what are you presenting? Is it, for example, children who are suffering from malnutrition, or, for example, women who are suffering, with any healthcare needs? It can be anything, but one must know what you're writing about, and also very clear about the donors or the funders ask. It is very necessary to, at the first instance, understand what the RFP, the request for proposal, says and talks about. While we work on different diversities in principle, in different domains, we also need to carry that domain level knowledge while we are in America or Canada or Africa or any of the South Asian nations, or Australia as well. We all have a very rich knowledge and experience in communicating verbally. But when it comes to writing precise grants or proposals, that's where we face that gap or lapse in putting things on a clear note on paper. I'll take a moment to also contextualize it in terms of cross-cultural communication, because good and well-written proposals with a good English, if or any other language that you speak in, really matters most. It also matters how you're communicating that perspective to the donor. Is it really hitting hard? Does it really make sense? Also, are you managing, some of the projects that you are talking about? Do you have the ground knowledge of it? Do you know your stakeholder on the ground very well? The beneficiaries that Blessings just spoke about, or Christina also spoke about, knowing what the beneficiaries status is, at the other end is very important. And putting that on paper is, your skill, your area of work. So leveraging all those unique skill sets and attributes is most important. I would just take on a final point here that is most important to me right now is technology and how technology is, shaping up our grant writing skills. Are we updating ourselves every day or at least once a week or once or twice a month on different technological advancements in grant writing as proposal or grant writers? That's one question that I would pose to all the professionals who've joined the webinar today. So that's my question to you, and I would like you to ponder upon on that one. At how well versed are you with technology in the current times? I'll just end it here and I'll take on other questions. Thank you so much, Abhi.
Excellent. Thank you, Karuna. And I loved how you turned it on the audience, asking them a question about technology, and which we're going to talk about in our discussion. And two other great points about that cultural context, and which included your culture, your beneficiaries, and even the culture of the funder, that really taking that all into context to create a more holistic understanding in the project plan, not just waiting for the deadline, but how do you plan in advance? So excellent things for us to discuss today. And now I'm going to welcome our final speaker to the virtual stage, Ryan. Please join us and let's hear more from you.
Thank you, Abhi. Hello, everybody. Namaste from Nepal. My name is Narayan Adhikari. I'm speaking from Nepal. I don't know if you have visited Nepal or not, but I would say if you want to be success in fundraising, do trekkings, make friends, and get out of the everyday stress that you are having, and really take a time for reflection and get new energy. So jokes apart, funds apart, my background is I've been in this development sectors as an advocate, activist, and so-called development champions. Has it worked for 20 years altogether, coming from a environment and forestry background, and then working as a governance activist, and now running a nonprofit. I have varieties of experience and knowledge and failures, but some of the things that I would like to share, which I am not going to tell you that you should do this or not, but this is something that I feel based on my experience might be interesting for you when it comes about, when it comes about being success on fundraising or building your organization and sustainability. I think the most important thing for me is, any fundraising has to be driven by your passion. it is really, it has to be the element of passion and who you are, what you do and how you do, and for what purpose do you do, it really matters. So, and being able to tell this to your donors, either through proposals or either through fundraising meetings or any happy hours, it really matters. Connect with donors, uh, along with your passion, and to really personalize this relationship, and it helps. And second experience that I have also have is that you have to be proactive all the time. You don't want to just wait and okay, there's gonna be new call coming. I'm just keep watching all these websites, subscribing. Oh, I haven't received any emails about fundraising calls, so I have sometimes I want to relax. No, be proactive, reach out to people, keep your eyes on, and look for the fundings and build that relationship. While my colleagues, friends mentioned about the importance of numbers and the narratives, the stories, I would say I think we have to balance. Some donors like just numbers, nice, beautiful infographics, and telling like, okay, if you give this amount of money, we will feed this many children and send this many kids to school, or protect this many forest land. But some donors love to hear about the narratives, what are these local narratives looks like, and how all those stories and narratives actually whether these narratives is going to make a difference or not. So there's you really have to balance based on what this what these donors are looking for. And then there's a common mistake that many people does, and I have been also doing the same. But what I'm learning is, please do not microwave all the time from your leftover. You need to have a new recipe and cook every fresh meal in your kitchen. That means that I have seen a lot of proposals that coming to me, that I have seen, like some people, they send me the same proposal like 7 years ago, and they're just using like, they're just like copying and pasting here and there, changing a little bit of keywords and synonyms, but the basic ideas and the language is the same. So please do not do that. Every time you have a constant challenge to be innovative and refresh your writings, and stories, and that way it builds your credibility, and it also gives you a unique positions from the donor's eyes. And that relates to be authentic, be authentic, and don't overpromise. And oftentimes when we write the proposals, we would say that we will do everything, we'll change everything over the night. So we try to impress our donor that with the little money they have, we will tell them that we will, if you give $10,000, we will give you 20,000, equivalent to 20,000 of this. So don't be overpromised. Just be very realistic, be authentic. I think it will show you that you are honest and you are transparent of what your strength, what your unique values. So that I think a lot of donors like that. And then other important thing is like, getting money is not just enough. You need to continue build that relationship. So keeping donors on the loop is really, really important. And do not wait to say hello and keep them updated until your like reporting periods. You don't have to wait for that. So keep donor on the loop. Make sure that the donors and you have a very friendly and one-to-one and frequent relations and understanding on what you are doing. So these reports, like these project reports and narratives, and these are basically formalities as part of your financial obligations. So many donors is not going to read a bulky report, so that you are building a constant relationship and keeping them on the loop, and also seeking their advice and how they think we could do better, and if there is a way we can also get connected with other grantees. So we ask every time to the donors that who you are working with, and how how are they doing, and how big your community looks like. Is there a way we can add value? So you constantly asking and adding values to what you are doing and getting that feedback. And that is actually helping for me when I'm when I'm working to build my organization's called Accountability Lab. And then another learning that I also had is like, if you're not confident, and if you're not confident, do not apply. Some people just apply, and I totally agree with Karuna. We are such a like 11th hour minded people. We're busy, and we say my priority is fundraising, but I always apply at the 11th hour, right? Which I'm just counting minutes, seconds, and hours. So if you're not confident, do not apply. So it just builds a different kind of perception from the donors. Oh, these guys keep applying, and he or she doesn't even know what we're looking for, and it will really dismantle your credibility. And regarding about metrics, like what we practice is, as we make a funding matrix, that we have all the records of where we applied, and then we, in every quarter or every 6 months, we do analysis, like where we're good at it, where we're not good at it. Like like at some points, the accountability lab, were really good at getting money from the foundation, but eventually we grow, we're bigger, and foundation said, oh, you are now bigger, grown, so we want to focus more to the new startups. But we realized that we needed to learn how to get money from the donors, like governments and other international organizations. So now with this matrix is helping us where we are good at it and where we need to learn more. So with that, I stop here, and yeah, thank you for listening me. And if there's any question, we can definitely discuss.
Excellent. Thank you, Narayan. Wonderful insights. And I think you emphasized again about that seeking advice and building those relationships. And I can attest, I've seen Narayan in action and really making those connections and friendships. So we can really talk about that. And now it's more than just transaction when working with funders. It's really bringing people together. And as you mentioned, hiking through Nepal may be one way to do that. So thank you for sharing those insights. So on that, now that we've heard some deep perspectives from our speakers, let's get into our discussion. So what we outlined today are 5 key areas, and we're going to deep dive into each of these areas. And then again, we'll open it up for questions from the audience. And I see some people have been asking those, so we encourage those. We're keeping track. And as we talk, one of the questions we had, speakers, if you have any insights into any resources you use, whether there's websites, whether there's networks, we invite you to include those too, because a few of our attendees have asked, oh, where do you go to find that info? So our first discussion topic today is going to be about writing. And Christina, I'm going to welcome you to start first. And essentially what we're interested in hearing from you is, how do you align your language with the interests of the funders? And what are some of the common questions that you have prepared? For example, what are questions that maybe every organization should just be ready to talk about? So Christina, I invite you first, and then we'll invite our other speakers to join in.
Okay, I will attempt. I think it's a balancing act, and I would recommend organizations to be as true to themselves as they can be. Like, authenticity matters, and you can see that in applications and in funding demands or requests. I would I'll link it to some of what I mentioned previously, and also some of my colleagues mentioned. Knowing the funder, of course, matters. So it's important to do the homework to understand the kind of things that the funder is paying attention to. Like Narayan mentioned, some are more interested in metrics than others, et cetera, et cetera. So understanding really who are you talking to, but also understanding really yourself, and what Karuna mentioned, really understanding the work that you do, because it's a shame if you are really passionate about the issue and not able to convey that in the application itself. In terms of writing, I would say that do not assume that the funder knows or the person you are talking to understands your reality, understands the reality necessarily of the people that you serve. Try to include the voices of the population that you serve as well in your grant writing. I think that's something we don't see as often as I would like, for example. It's important to show your commitment. I have known of past, and of course these are anecdotal kind of examples, but I think it speaks, the message behind it is that I've known an organization who applied for a grant and it was asked to interview following the application, and the organization had an attitude, it was not on purpose, but it came with an attitude that even if we don't get the money from you, we'll carry on with our work, or we will continue working because we are passionate about the thing that we do, or we believe in the importance of our work. And that actually spoke to the funder, because it differentiated the organization among all the other kind of organizations that applied for funding. Yeah, I would say stay true to yourself, including if you don't know what is important to the funder, certain things that you can try to do besides, of course, researching online, etc. Speak to past grantees of that particular funder. That always helps. That is something that you can tap into. Usually organizations are open to talk about it, and you can get really insightful information about it, or what kind of things worked. If you are applying for grants or writing applications for years and nothing comes out of it, I would definitely look inside. I would introspect because I think although funding we don't get it for various reasons, but if you are applying the same formula, maybe it's things you need to change. What else? Yeah, ask for advice. Ask for when you're writing the application, ask for advice of people who are outside your organization, because we are biased by our own work and reality, and we think that I think that bias is important, and it's important to look for an external perspective on the type of work you do. So use friends, use other organizations, and ask for advice.
Excellent point. Asking for advice. And I get a reminder that Kuja Link and the Unfunded List have an opportunity in March where you can submit a proposal and they'll give you feedback, which to Christina's point is very helpful. Other speakers, insights that you also have about writing or recommendations to the group?
Let me come in.
Yes, blessings.
Yeah, so I think Clara has highlighted very important points. One being researching the funder. You know, most of the times some people may just go into diving into maybe filling the proposal form or whatever without understanding who the funder is and their goals, their mission, what they're trying to achieve. So you need to understand the funder very well. You need to do a thorough research, previous work they've provided, previous projects they've funded before, so that you can learn the areas and some key areas which they focus on. So the second point I wanted to say is on you need to tailor your language when you are writing the grant proposal. Usually donors or funders, they usually have their their terminologies in terms of the project they want to achieve. So you need to understand, as the first point Clara has raised, you need to understand the donor or the funder. You need to do a thorough research. Then you need to tailor your language. Your terminologies need to resonate with that funder's mission or goals. So you should not just write in a way that maybe you're just writing anyhow. But then you need to align your language. You need to align your terms. Not like you should go into jargons or technical words that maybe the funder will not even understand as well or no. But you need to just align with the area the funder is focusing on. So the third point is on quantifying the impact. I think this one already said in my area presentation, but then I'll just go to point number 4, which is also the last one. That is, you need to demonstrate. You need to demonstrate your competence. You know, a funder will not be willing to fund an organization which is weak in terms of their team competences. You know, they need an organization which is has a strong team, well qualified, with deep experience, so that when they fund you, their money should be safe. So you need to demonstrate that you are really competent. You have a well qualifying team that will carry out the task very well, will carry out the project very well. The funders usually, they want to be really very sure that, I think, when you got funding, you really utilize it very well. One, you will not mismanage because you have a qualified team, accountants or finance manager. If in a scenario that maybe you are just a startup, you're just starting, you know, you don't have that previous work before that you've delivered a certain project, it's better you collaborate with existing institutions or people with track record of experience. You partner with them, or you collaborate with them, so that you should include them in the project if you are just a startup. But then if you've been existing before, you have a track record of experience in handling big projects as well before. So that item is also very important that I wanted to highlight when you are writing. You need to align your language with a funder's goal or mission, and then you need also to demonstrate that you are really a bankable institution by demonstrating your competence with the team. I thank you so much, Abby.
Yeah. Excellent points. And I think that's valuable to highlight, because some people here may have well-established projects, or some are new. In that team element, being able to demonstrate that your staff, and that is a way, for example, when it's a new project, being able to show we have staff that may be well-established in the community, or, for example, you mentioned have high competency in managing finances. So there's other elements beyond just what your project or program is doing, in that you're establishing that credibility. So that's a very good reminder, that being able to demonstrate that our team has the credibility in the community, the competency to do this. So that's part of that relationship building. Excellent. So I'm going to expand this question of writing, because part of the writing process goes to our next question, which is metrics. And metrics are often the numbers, the indicators. And I'm curious hearing from our speakers, and I'm going to invite Narayan to speak first. And I'm especially interested, Narayan, we have our questions here. What are some of the metrics you utilize? And I know you've been with the Accountability Lab for many years, from essentially, I'm curious in how the metrics have evolved, even from the beginning, what metrics you were using with the programs team to now. And we'd love to hear your insights on metrics and what recommendations you may have for our audience.
Thank you, Avi. I think this matrix is not something I really enjoy while, writing grants, although sometimes you don't have a choice. However, there are few tools which are very traditional and everybody knows it. For example, SWOT analysis is always helps. I do that even if I am not a big fan of the, let's say, short analysis or log frames, or if there's any particular the format that we have to follow based on donors. So with the SWOT analysis, it always, it always helps you, because it gives you a mirror, like who you are, what your strength is, what your weakness is, where are the opportunities is, and where are the threats are. So these are not new thing, but it gives you, or it puts you in a position that you compelled to think differently when it comes about what is your strength is. So until now you probably think is your strength is convening power, but if you go through SWOT analysis with your team, with your stakeholders or with your partners, with your communities, you might find another strength which you may want to build on for certain proposals, and it can be more influencing and more significant to really convince your donor. So you never know. Even if you don't like it, please use it, because it's take you to a different journey. And then log frames is easy in a way. You want to quantify your your ideas in terms of impacts, outputs, outcomes. It really gives you a nice table, a logical thinking to organize yourself. So oftentimes people just begin to write the narratives, but they get lost in terms of numbers and ideas, activities. But having a log frame, it first it gives you a specific direction and how you want to write it, what you want to write it, and what level of efforts you want to put it, and whether it's aligned with your existing capacity or strength, and whether it's aligned with the donor priorities and interest or not. So these are basic things I use, and this, to be honest, this is not a new thing. You all knows that. Everybody has that experience. But sometimes you have all these beautiful question coming from the donor. They will say, what is your political analysis of a gender and economies in Nepal? So this kind of question always challenge me a lot. So you have to, but you have no choice. You have to respond to them. Otherwise, you will not be considered as considered for the review of the proposal. So you write it. And then I think within the question, that I think the biggest challenge is if there's a 5 or 6, 7 question that each donor has, oftentimes what mistakes we do is we try to write everything in the first question, right? And then eventually, like sometimes they're asking about question related to impact, at the end, and then sometimes they ask question related to our ability to operate these projects. But we have a tendency, especially those who are like people like me, coming from non-English background, the language is always a barrier. Although there's so much we want to tell, but we don't know how to tell it. So we tend to write everything in 1 or 2 or 3 questions. So we don't really understand, or we don't really focus much on what the question is actually looking for and what we want to uniquely place within that questions. So I think doing that will definitely help, because when the review committee sits for review, they also have to follow certain they have to follow their certain rules, and they don't want to go beyond that. So they become very technical. So they have their own evaluation metrics. So try to understand what evaluation metrics might look like, and make sure that how you're going to fit and create that ways, which is according to that. I think this is what I practice, and I'm not sure whether it's applies to everybody, or it really makes sense to everyone listening here or not. But you have no choice. You have to use it. And more than metrics, I still still argue that it's really about what you have learned, and what your narratives is about.
Excellent. That is an excellent point. And we had a question from the audience, and I'm going to go off our planned questions here and throw this to our speakers. Failure. Prakash asked, can you raise funds from a failure story? And a few of you mentioned using storytelling and narratives. And do any of our speakers have any example of how they utilized when they did not have a success to share and were able to utilize that to build relationships to raise money?
I can jump in
I would like
here.
to take
Sorry.
that. Yes,
Go ahead. Go ahead, Karuna.
Is that Karuna,
yes.
please?
I think I'll just take a few minutes. Abby, Narayan, just give me a few minutes and then you can patch in onto this. I'd like to share my experience from the COVID times. When it was highly challenging to raise funds from foundations or any kind of agency which was giving funds. The world was so consumed in a pandemic and deriving new ways and thoughts of putting new language into our grant writing skills, right? And those were times that, COVID health um, hazards had just started off in our lives. We were caged in our own four walls, handling us, our families, and also our workspaces, right? There were frontline workers working on the ground. So, I'm sharing my own experience as a grant writer and a partnership coordinator, wherein I found it so challenging for at least an year. For 1 year, I was coping with the trauma of, going through um, raising funds and how and more challenging it was becoming for us as a nonprofit organization in India. It's not easy anyway, whichever way it is, whether there's a pandemic or not, but failures are a hard hitting circumstance and situation. But how I learned from it was by knowing what the frontline workers after the 6th month, I was kind of gathering updates from frontline workers and my coordinators on the ground who were a part of the program team, as in who are they meeting? What are the beneficiaries facing? What are the dialogues they are speaking? What is the current situation on ground? Why are services not reaching them? Who all are these people? Are they really sick? Are they getting groceries on time? Because if you know, a lot of countries, including India, Nepal, and a whole lot of donors abroad, they were funding organizations to distribute groceries and daily need items, on the ground so that people could survive the pandemic. So those are things really basic, really simple, and really hard hitting, that can make up our proposal writing more creative. Of course, after the COVID, I would also bring upon this point that even after the COVID times, we got settled into the present times, have been raising funds, but some of us have still been referring to COVID times. Now that seems to be a failure again for me, because we have it's been long due that we came out of COVID. It is still present in some of the countries where we might be still writing about it, but where it is not present, we need not write about the same story. We should not cut and paste the same story again. That might again end up into a failure. So, of course, there are surviving families who are still suffering. Needless to say, when you are working on healthcare, with beneficiaries on the ground, you have to give a reference. But it's definite that you have to speak from experience, but not repeat the same experience, maybe, but talk from more of an evaluative point of view, which talks more deeply about what you faced and how much that story speaks to raise funds. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And was it Narayan? Did you have a failure story to share?
Oh, there's a lot actually, but with the interest of the time, no, I totally agree with Karuna. And also the Christina at the beginning, the failure now is your success tomorrow. So just be sure. Uh, but how do you celebrate your failure? It really depends on how you're going to success in the next time. So how we do it is we first ask donor or whoever, if they have any feedbacks and advice that we can do better in our next round, or not even to the same particular donor or overall, that we always do that. And some donors will provide you a good feedback, some won't. Do not worry about that. And the second is we sit back with our team and stakeholders wherever possible and review like where we fail and how we fail, and is there something we can learn from our next next grant writings. So that is one. And the third one is failure is somehow is not really good because you're losing money. But if you know who are the winners and you try to build relations and contacts, that is going to be another win. Because and then you know how to add value to those who have received grants. And believe me, you begin to brag on these people who have received grants and add value to them. And maybe you want to communicate through different ways in blogs and op-eds or social medias and in happy hours. So donor will love that. So that the donor will see you someone that you are not just a grant seeker and doing basic activities, but you are the one who are actually building that ecosystem. So I think the failures leads to you a different dimensions that and take you in the different position that you are actually above than just getting grants and doing your things, but you're actually cultivating relationship and impacting on collective action. So these three things we always looked on. Like the first, we review where we went where we went wrong, if there's a lesson we can learn. Second, we always ask feedback from the donors. And the third, we really try to connect with the communities that who have been able to success on getting these grants and add value to them.
Excellent. I'm writing those three. So discuss, internally ask feedback, engage with community. So really learning from your failure, I think showing your learning organization is really key. And again, going off script, we're merging into our question and answer. We have a lot of vibrant questions from the group, and a lot of mention has been made of relationships. And there are a few questions here. Anne asked a question, and Shahena asked a question. And I'm gonna ask a few, and then I'd love to invite all of our speakers to share some advice. So essentially, some of the questions are: how do you build relationships? Specifically, how have you met international funders locally in your own communities or countries? And also, how do you create these relationships when there are so many established relationships? Like a funder may also already be funding an organization over many years. Well, how do you start a relationship? And are there any steps or mechanisms or processes you use to build those relationships? So I think our audience would love to hear from our speakers. How do you build relationships and how do you find those relationships?
I can start giving my perspective. I've seen some questions also related to that. What to do when a funder funds an organization and not the other. And it's true. Sometimes it's about connections, and it's true. Like getting a job. Sometimes you get a job not because it's because you know somebody. It's how the world works, and that's partially an answer. But there is a lot of things that you can do. I think it's important to look at it from a more empowered perspective. I think it matters, and I think an organization can do more. It's also, I mean, at the end, it's a matter of choice. Like, do you just say, oh, the world is unfair, and I'm that's how which is true. Or you can do, just change a bit the attitude and approach it from a different kind of angle, and see what else can you do, because things always change, and things, if a funder funds an organization doesn't mean it's going to fund that organization forever. Or funders are also learning. Things are also changing on the funder and philanthropy side as well of doing things. So we live in a constantly changing world. So funders also look for more diversified partners and other kind of partners as well. So it happens. But you as a new organization, well, building relationship takes time. It's important to have a very good intention about it, and just keep on trying, but be mindful of the funder as well. You can reach out, of course, for advice as a starter. You can maybe ask if you could include the organization into your newsletter or other kind of communications that you provide. Just kind of have a touching, just touch, have a foot on the ground with that, just a starter with that funder. You can ask them for an informal interview, to meet with them, to just kind of discuss, invite them to your own events. That helps, or other kind of activities that you do. You can always invite them to come and learn from your work on the ground. I think many funders are open to that, especially those who are in your geographical location. I think it's a bit difficult for the international partners. However, internationally, I would also tap into networks of, let's say, Peace Corps volunteers in your country, because they might know somebody, and that's kind of, just think who would be more internationally, maybe people with international networks in your location, and maybe through them you can tap into other kind of networks. So that's why building partnership with other people, institutions that are not necessarily your nonprofit or other kind of nonprofit similar to you, that can be an option. So I'll stop here and let my colleagues speak as well.
Excellent. Relationships. Who else has some insights? Blessings. Oh yeah. I'm going to take Blessings quick, because Blessings had some experience getting USAID, UNIDP money. And I was curious if any of that came from relationships on the ground in Malawi, and what you've learned or what you've seen maybe some of your peers do with building some relationships on the ground.
Thank you so much, Abby. From my experience, I think we did find those kind of engagements during, workshops that we've been attending. So I think it's important, as already stated by my colleague, that it's important to be attending some workshops or seminar, and then you interact, you network, so that you exchange some numbers. And also, it's better to be engaging a lot with social media. And then there are some key funders like USAID and then these UN agencies, which they usually put on their websites if they are interested in any private sectors or non-government organizations to apply for grants. So from my experience, because usually funders, they are connected in one circle. I can put it in that way, that they are connected in one circle, and they know each other. Sorry for the noise. They know each other. So for the USAID, I've come to know that if they are funding an organization, they want to know your previous track record. Have you received any grant before from any donor? Because they know each other, like they are into one pool. So they usually want to know that, because they want to know your previous experience. If you really did a good job, or maybe you did misbehave, you plundered the resources. So in terms of how to maintain a good relationship with funders, I think it's for those that have received the grants before, it's very important to utilize the grant very well, and then the relationship keeps growing when you are delivering the intended results. Otherwise, I think it's really hard just to build a relationship by weight, but you need to build the relationship by the works that you were supposed to do, and then you deliver it competently on ground. I should also mention that I think with USAID, they are connected. Recently, I was working on certain proposal for USAID. By then, they are funding another institution, CIMIT. I'm not sure if others might know it. Yeah, so they are funding CIMIT, and there is also Feed the Future, which they are helping. But then at the top, it's a USAID giving the funds. So we've received funding before from USAID, and then what they want to know is, how did you utilize your previous grants? Okay, since when you're also applying with USAID, I've come to know that they usually request you to give, they say you unique identity number, which you need to register with them. And then when you are applying for a proposal, you put that number, that unique identity number on the application. So they punch that number to see if you received any grant before. So if you did a bad job, it means next round you want to get any funding. Yeah, so in short, I can say that. Thank you.
Excellent. Great insights. And I know we're nearing the end. So I think that relationship piece, I think finding those networks, like Christina mentioned, Return Peace Corps, there may be different embassies in the country, or it's a small world of funders. So as Blessings was mentioning, with like the USAID, the UNICEF, the international NGOs, looking for those connections, inviting people for advice, inviting them to get involved, inviting them to join your newsletter, for example. So think about how you can build those relationships, both in person and virtual. And so in about 30 seconds, I'm going to invite our speakers who have done an amazing job to give kind of their closing remarks, like a closing piece of advice or inspiration that's going to send our attendees forth energized with our conversation. And before we do that, I just want to highlight a few pieces. There were a lot of great questions. One, there were a few about research. There actually was a previous webinar focused on research, so see Kuja link for that recording. And then about numbers, there actually is a future webinar about budgeting. So please see Kuja link for updates about that. So on that note, I'm going to invite our speakers. Again, we'll do the same order as we started to give their closing remarks. I want to thank everyone for joining us, and really to encourage you on your journey, and that there's going to be, as we discussed, a lot of failures, but it is worth it to continue supporting what you're doing. And when you get that success, it is going to be inspiring. So keep looking toward that future and keep collaborating and looking for advice within your network. So on that note, let's hear our closing inspirations from our speaker. And Christina, we'll turn to you for your closing remarks.
Yeah, best of luck. I think our organizations are, as I said in my opening, are dealing with a lot of things, and are doing the work, and also carry the administrative burden. So kudos. It's not easy. My advice is to approach any kind of relationship as a true partnership. You have as much to offer, maybe more. And actually, I think more than just money. It's a reciprocal relationship. Yeah, be empowered and tell your story. Also, of course, being empathetic with the funder, because each funder has their own reality as well, and constraints, and we live in a very imperfect world as well. And be mindful of that, and yeah, try to be a problem solver, which you are on the ground, but also with the funder as well.
Excellent, thank you. Blessings, your closing thoughts.
Thank you so much. I think it's been a really wonderful session. I think I've really learned a lot as well. The interaction was amazing. And then my closing remarks is to continuously learn. The writing of grant proposals, sometimes, you get a bad feedback, but then it's not a bad feedback. You need to learn from the feedback. You keep improving. You continuously learn. You get, you register for paid up trainings on grant writing or workshops you attend. And then there are also other funders, which usually they start to train you first before you receive the funding. And then you can also plan to attend or plan for, a training that equips you to improve continuously regarding to proposal writing. So what I can just say in conclusion is to continuously learn, continuously improve on how you can approach and then write grants winning proposals. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Karuna, your closing thoughts.
Thank you, Abby, and my colleagues here. I think I'm going to focus more on also showing sustainability as the first point. It's so clearly demonstrable during current times. When we are demonstrating sustainability, I think funders or the stakeholders we are reaching out to really want to appreciate knowing that the investment that they're going to make will be having a lasting impact. So that is one. And a bonus tip that I would like to give is again building on relationships that you've built on in the past, but also the newer ones, but also nurturing the very older ones, whether these are individual donors or a group of donor institutions or bigger institutions, whichever they are, but you are nurturing those relationships. And I think nurturing potential funders is really crucial to build on, grant writing as well as a prospect. That's what leads to a well-crafted and tailored proposal as well. When you have built a relationship and you know very clearly what you're going to work on. So these are the two things or tips that I would like to give. The third one I'd just like to add on, which is quickly giving the realistic budget, which is also crucial. Giving a realistic budget is very, very crucial. You need to know how much your budget is. That I didn't cover during my other answers. It's really important to be transparent on how you allocate funds in the budget sheet that you make in log frames or in the budget tables, which clearly outlines costs associated to the projects. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Karuna. And Edgar was so kind to put into the chat, there is the link for the upcoming budget workshop. So I encourage everyone to attend that. And Narayan, your closing inspiration for our attendees.
Thank you. I think rather than the inspiration from me, I'm getting inspiration from people here. I would say let's be proud of what we're doing and be sure that when you are seeking resources and where you think that the asset has with donors, no, the asset is yours. Like your knowledge, your convening power, your community is your asset. Make sure that you also equally promote your value, your assets. While we're talking about building relationship for fundraising. And my closing tips is the fundraisings is all about friend raising. So we do a lot of friend raisers. If it helps, please keep doing friend raisers. Thank you.
Amazing. And I consider everyone here a friend. Thank you to our outstanding speakers who have shared some deep insight, and to all of you for attending, for taking the time to advance your own knowledge. And really, here's my challenge for you. Let's build that on that idea of friendships and relationships. And over the course of this week, whether it's someone you met on this webinar, or whether it's someone on your social media, or whether you go to an event, build one relationship, reach out to someone. As Narayan was saying, be proactive, reach out to someone, have a face-to-face, have a tea, have a coffee, have a call. Make that your goal in the next week and ask for advice. Ask someone for advice in how you can improve your organization. So thank you all very much. Keep up the great work, and let's make it an inspiring 2024.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Abby. Thank you to all the speakers. Thank you, Dave. And as we said, but I'm going to repeat because it's been asked many times, we are going to share the recording tomorrow with all the attendants. It's going to stay there on the platform, and we are also going to create a nice Q&A session to keep responding to all of these questions. So we'll keep in touch. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon or morning.
Thank you.
Bye. thank you to all the interpreters as
Thank you so
well.
much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.